Hi people, it's me again, of course, Marina Ravenberg. Based on the header of this video, as always, you're seeing what the topic or subject matter is going to be about. It's going to be about homelessness, okay? And I don't think this is going to be a long video. Anyways, let me dive right in. When it comes to homelessness, right, the majority of people have a negative view of homelessness. Not that you can have a positive view. I mean, there's nothing positive about someone living alongside the street. And most of us will either detest any homeless person, dislike them, or hate them outright, and or avoid them at all costs. Because they're usually smelly, stinking people that just represent everything you don't want to be, essentially. And when it comes to actually giving money to the homeless, the majority of people will say no, obviously. One or two exceptional people, not including one or two exceptional people. Some people will give money, but the majority has a mentality towards the homeless along the lines of, why don't you get a job, you bum. The homeless are seen as lazy, that are unwilling to fend for themselves, and the majority of society thinks if I work so hard to make a living or earn a living, why if I work so hard to do so, why can't you do the same? But here's the thing, and I'm not standing up for the homeless. I also despise homeless people in general. Okay, I wouldn't go so far as to scream obscenities at them or yell obscenities at them, but I also would avoid them in general. I wouldn't want them anywhere near me, and you name it. For the most part, my mentality is the same as the average person you'll find out there. But the difference is that I know a lot more about homelessness than the average person, because I can actually think that far ahead. I have thought that far ahead. Okay, hence me discussing it in this video. The thing about homeless people is that the majority of them, all, if not at the very least the most of them, or the majority of them, have some kind of mental deficiency. They have some kind of mental abnormality. Yeah, just ignore that, Marinko. They have some kind of mental deficiency and or abnormality that makes it so that that they can't function normally. Okay. For example, with homeless veterans, war veterans, it's PTSD, and it just goes on. Pointing cases by mental abnormality or deficiency, I mean that there's something wrong with them mentally. There's, hypothetically speaking, a screw loose here, one or two screws or gears up there are loose, and that's what makes it so that these people can't get back on their feet and get a life going. I mean, some of them do, but the majority of them spend a good deal of time alongside the street. We're talking about years living on the street before they catch a break, to put it that way. Some of them spend a lifetime alongside the street. Don't ask me how they survive. They literally live like vermin. That's the only way I can imagine that they survive, or how they survive. Yeah, but just picture yourself becoming homeless, because it can happen to anyone. Okay, all it takes are multiple misfortunes in your life, to put it that way. Your house burns down, you didn't have, the house wasn't insured against fire hazards, you lose your job as a result. Things just snowball, okay, your life snowballs. What do you think is going to happen? Okay, before you know it, boom, you're alongside the street. For example, any person that you wanted to turn to can't help you or is unwilling to help you, like family or whatever, family, friends, nothing. And before you know it, you're alongside the street, And, but here is the difference. Any person that is of a sound mind, any person that still has the ability to think rationally and rationalize, and whose mind is in the right place, to put it that way, okay, whose mind is functioning properly, will do whatever it takes. You could be some hotshot stockbroker with a mansion and stuff like that, and you end up alongside the street due to a series of unfortunate circumstances. As long as your mind is intact, to put it that way, you'll do whatever it takes. Even if it means delivering pizzas, doing Uber Eats, DoorDash, you name it. Literally working a job that you don't need any kind of documentation or qualifications for. What are you going to do? You're going to build yourself up all the way from the bottom again. Okay, by default, your survival instinct is going to kick in your mind. And you're going to think about the absolute basics of necessities. You need a place to sleep, a roof over your head. You need a source of income, so a job. You need this, you need that. You name it. And regardless of how long it could take, whether it's half a year, or even a decade, or multiple decades, or even half a lifetime, you name it. My point is that you'll get back on your feet, essentially. And see what got you there? You being of a sound mind got you there. And when you compare this to homeless people, you tell me, viewer or viewers, you tell me, okay, whether it makes sense or not, because obviously it doesn't make sense. You know, the homeless or homeless people, they don't do any of this. Notice that they have no survival. They literally just live alongside the street. They do whatever homeless people do. They beg, they panhandle, I have no idea what homeless people occupy themselves with. They just sit by and watch life and the world flash them by as days go by, and before you know it, the days turn into months and the months turn into years, and it just goes on. But see, that's my point. And there you go. The majority of homeless people, their mind is not in the right place. They are not of a sound mind. That doesn't mean that they're insane. Obviously, they're not insane. They're coherent enough to the point where you can talk to them, to the point where you can rationalize with them, but they miss that aspect, okay, of their psyche. They miss that aspect of their psyche that makes them function normally, okay, as in the aspect of their mind that would literally tell them, hey, get a job, okay, find a place to sleep, find a roof over your head, regardless of what you have to choose, regardless of how low it is compared to what you're used to when you were a normal person, when you weren't homeless, you name it. They're missing that fundamental aspect, okay, of their mind, the survival aspect of their mind that would bring them back to being a normal member of society. And here is also where you discover the cause for homelessness. The majority of people that are homeless, the reason for why their minds are not in the right place, or they're not of a sound mind, fully of a sound mind, is because they've been through some trauma. Something horrible happened to them in their life, and it shook and rattled them to their core mentally, to the point where those hypothetical screws and gears I was referring to earlier simply came loose, and they can't function properly as a result and or consequence. And the end result is that they simply drift through life, all the while being homeless, of course. That's my point. But again, if you were to interview or hold a survey, and you select 10 homeless people based on statistics, as in, this is what 99% of homeless people are like, at least 9 out of 10 of them, or 8 out of 10 of them, at least, when you dig deep enough into their lives, you'd find out what the causes of their homelessness, and you would also find out that what happened to them. You'd find the source, or you'd get down to the source. You'd find out what the sources of their lack of survival instinct, their survival psyche, if you will. The majority of them, something horrible happened to them in their lives, or something similar happened to them. Definitely not good. Something happened to them, okay? Whether it's something traumatizing that's really shook them up mentally, just made them go whoosh, and they just lost it, so to speak. For others, it's drugs, just shooting up drugs, hard drugs like cocaine, crack, you name it. And it just goes on and on and on. Point in case is still that there's a good reason for why these people are homeless. And it's not about the physical event they went through. Their parents kicked them out of their house when they were teenagers. I've seen videos of teenagers that are homeless, people in their 80s, the people that are 18, 16 years old, in their early 20s, you name it. Only a couple, mind you, okay? A couple of videos, I mean. And it's not about the physical event. It's not about their parents kicking them out. It's about the fact that event was so traumatizing to them mentally, it shook them up mentally, and it really had such a deep impact on them, a misfortunate impact on them, that they simply couldn't cope with it mentally. and it simply damaged them. Similar to you, for example, having your hand slammed in between a door, for example, and your hand has some kind of permanent deformity where the second you move your thumb, it starts to hurt. Even years can go by, your thumb still hurts. It's something along those lines. It's the same thing for these homeless people, and of course, generally speaking, you would advise mental help or psychological help or counseling or therapy of in any way, which would be a fitting solution. But the problem would be that the majority of homeless people, they don't want to, they wouldn't be willing to comply, as far as I know. They've gotten too used to living alongside the street and or in the gutter, and they simply, they simply are going to be unwilling to comply. They've devolved into living off of impulses for the most part. So for them, it's literally just living off of impulses and doing what the basic instincts tell them to, unfortunately. But my point is, if you find yourself in such an unfortunate position, you've hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. And what will help you get up and back to where you were or similar is your mind. You need to be of a sound mind. Your sanity needs to be preserved to its fullest extent, or to its fullest of extents. And last but not least, I would also say that if someone were to ask me what would my solution be, and it doesn't just apply to the homeless, it applies to the so-called less fortunate, and I don't mean that financially. I mean anyone that is at a setback in life, anyone that has to cope or deal with negativity of some kind to the point where it's noticeable. But just for the purposes of an example, of giving an example, let's just say, the people that are struggling financially, the people that aren't well off, the needy, the homeless, and those that are in need of welfare. Similar to a welfare program, you do not help these people. That's why usually when you give stuff away for free, you're going to attract choosing beggars. You're going to attract, in some cases literally, you're going to attract people that have nothing, and yet they have the audacity to actually be critical of what you want to give away for free. That's why, me personally, I've given enough stuff away for free in the past. I'm not giving away anything. I would rather destroy something. This TV, I would rather burn the TV at a landfill or a dumping ground or something like that, as in actually douse it in lighter fluid and then set it ablaze and watch it burn in a car while I just watch it burn. And after that, I'm done with it. Once I'm sure that it can't be used and it's turned into a smoldering pile of ash, so to speak, then I'm gone. But I know what it's like, okay? The general consensus is you help out someone that is, I'm not saying that you shouldn't help people, but I'm saying be selective in terms of whom you help. The general consensus in the world is that if you give someone, hypothetically speaking, a finger, someone that has no fingers, instead of being grateful for that finger, in the intermediary or long term, make no mistake, that person will want the entire hand and even the arm, mind you. But yeah, people by default are ungrateful. I did a separate video on that, okay, how to deal with ungrateful people. People by default can be very ungrateful. That's why Jesus himself said, do good and do not look back, for the world knows no gratefulness. Yeah. But my point is, you should be selective in terms of whom you help. And to anyone in need, whether it be financially or otherwise, my solution would be, on a large scale, is to provide them with the means to help themselves, but do not help them directly. Do not give out, do not host soup kitchens, don't give food packages to the needy, don't give money to panhandlers and hobos. No. You need, if you legitimately want to help people in a positive way, you need to give them the opportunity to help themselves. But do not help someone by, hypothetically speaking, sticking your hand in fire for them when they're not even willing to do that for themselves. And believe me, I've seen these people. Usually the people that are at the lowest class of society, the needy, those that are ridiculously poor, or those that are suffering in some way, shape, or form. If you're stupid enough to actually help them, it's going to be the equivalent of giving of giving leftovers to an animal, what do you think is going to happen? That animal is going to come back with cousins and nieces and nephews and you name it, the entire fucking horde, essentially. Because the animal thinks, oh, free food. It's the same thing, okay? Give money to a beggar and don't be surprised if he has the audacity to be critical. If you give $5 to him, he's going to say, only $5? Seriously? Get the fuck out of here. And throw your $5 back at you. It's enough to make you fly into a mad rage, but you have only yourself to blame in that instance. Again, if you want to help people, legitimately help people, if you legitimately want to help people, you provide them with the means of helping themselves, okay? But not in, like I said, welfare is a good example. A process where they have to fill in a good deal of paperwork, where they have to put their lives on paper, where they have to meet the requirements and or standards. But do not just help them out of the blue. It can lead to nothing but negativity in general. And again, the same concept applies to employment. Why do you think that high-end companies have the greatest of demands? And adversely, notice that companies that have little to nothing in the way of standards, what kind of so-called people they attract? Exactly, deadbeats. A company that has no standards whatsoever and is seeking employees. An employer that's seeking employees with little to no standards, whom do you think you're going to attract? You're going to attract every imbecile, okay, from east to west and north to south. That's the whole problem. So yeah, and adversely, the high-end companies, if you want to work at such a company, you have to meet a good deal of criteria, but that's the way it's supposed to be. It's the same thing. So for the last time, if you want to help people legitimately, those that are in need, provide them with the means or contribute to providing them with the means to help themselves. How exactly doesn't come to mind at the moment, but bottom line is provide them with the means to help themselves. But do not help them directly by, hypothetically speaking, sticking your hand in fire, like I said, when they're not even willing to do so for themselves. No, don't help someone that's not willing to help themselves. Provide them with the means to do so, or attribute or contribute to providing them with the means to do so. End of story. Bye bye.